regar. Maar zo hoor. Maar, up.
More people have visited outer space than have ever swum with sperm whales in open ocean. In this episode of Exploring Under Sail, Paul and Sheryl Shard sail to the mid-Atlantic islands of the Azores to try and dive with the largest toothed animal in the world, the sperm whale.
It's early morning on the Atlantic Ocean. Over 2 weeks ago, Paul and I set sail alone from Bermuda aboard our 37-foot sailboat Two-Step, and, sharing an around-the-clock watch, crossed an 1,800-mile expanse of open sea. Within hours we'll make landfall in Horta on the island of Fayal, once a harbor of refuge for whaling ships of old, now a crossroads for recreational sailors and whale watchers.
Fayal is part of the 9-island archipelago of the Azores, an autonomous region of Portugal in the mid-Atlantic, 800 miles from Lisbon and 2,100 miles from New York.
By midday, the breeze has picked up, and as we tack into the bay at Horta, we are overwhelmed by the sight and smell of land at long last. The hills are so green, and looking at the red rooftops almost hurts our sea-weary eyes. After 2 weeks alone on the ocean, Sheryl and I are looking forward to tying Two-Step to a dock and getting ashore for a while.
It's a cosmopolitan community of sailors that passes through Horta every summer, all of them sailing a minimum of 1,000 offshore miles to get here. Once ashore, the Shards are welcomed to Horta by Peter Azevedo, owner of the world-famous Cafe Sport, a home away from home for visiting sailors.
If you need something from Cafe Sport, you're always welcome. And then the people, is coming, change money in Cafe Sport, buy postcards. I told the people where is the machine shop, the sail maker, supplies for the boat because then time is no supermarkets. Also, the people when they start stay here longer, is write to the family to send mail to Cafe Sport.
Another reason for visiting Cafe Sport is to see Peter's scrimshaw collection, carvings and etchings on the 6-inch long teeth of sperm whales, many created by whalers that visited Horta when Peter was a young man. Now that whaling is over, it's a rare and important record of a past era. Another man of Horta preserving this heritage is John Van Opstal, one of the few scrimshaw artists left in the world today.
The old American sailors, they were for months on the ocean to find the whales, and then they start to make engravings on the teeth from the lover, from the family, from the boat they've been working. That is typical American scrimshaw. The Azorians, when they were whaling, they were never months from the houses. It was a long time, was let me say 1, 2 or 3 days. So they never were homesick like the Americans or other nations who were always sailing for months. So the themes are different. The designs, they're not modern illustrations, but based on a profession, whaling, what disappeared already. So I've been working in the past.
After spending 2 weeks at sea, the Shards need to get their land legs again and head out into the hills to explore the large volcanic crater that forms the island. All the islands in the Azores were formed volcanically and are important navigational landmarks for both sailors and migrating whales.
We decide to make the 400-meter descent to the bottom of the crater. After being at sea, it feels great to walk on solid ground and inhale the scent of trees and flowers. But it's difficult to comprehend the distance through the dense foliage, and it takes much longer to get to the bottom than we thought. With my wobbly sea legs, I begin to wonder if I'll be able to climb out again. But when Paul and I reach the floor of the crater, I quickly forget my tiredness at the sight that awaits us. The towering walls surrounding us now were long ago thrust from the ocean floor by powerful volcanic forces. Over the years, the fires cooled, and a lake formed on the bottom. But when a new volcano erupted on the west coast of the island in 1958, fractures formed in the earth here, causing the lake to drain to a small pond. Oh, Paul, I think this is all mint. Look at this. Oh, we'll make some mint tea at the boat tonight.
After seeing the volcanic landscape ashore, the Shards are curious about the landscape beneath the water that attracts whales to this area and prepare for a shoreside dive.
After diving in the tropics for so long, it's a bit of a shock to be in the cool temperatures of the mid-Atlantic, but we quickly adjust and are soon captivated by the fish and marine life we're seeing.
The same volcanic forces we saw ashore are even more evident below the waves. We swim amongst huge boulders tossed from ancient eruptions and imagine the seas boiling with hot lava.
The rocks provide a marvelous hiding place for many kinds of fish, including this goatfish, using his barbels to feed on the bottom like it's one big salad bar.
The abundance of fish and other marine life is what makes these isolated islands such ideal feeding grounds for migrating sperm whales.
Beautiful fish. Oh, well, not many polvo. No.
Polvo is Portuguese for octopus, reputed to be found in these waters. Not finding any on their first dive, the Shards go out with Norberta Serpa, a local expert with many hundreds of hours of experience in these waters. The octopus has the highest intelligence of all invertebrates. It can remember and to some degree reason. It is also a master of disguise on the reef, able to match its coloring to wherever it chooses to sit. Octopus are rarely seen by day, so the Shards are lucky when they get to see this animal feeding on the reef. In addition to their ability to slip their boneless bodies into the tiniest of crevices, and their formidable powers of camouflage, the octopus has one more clever method of defense. Flying away from a predator, it can jet a cloud of ink out behind it and use this smoke screen as an opportunity to dart into a hiding place. Sailing between the islands, the Shards begin their search for sperm whales. Despite the fact that at over 50 feet in length, sperm whales are larger than two-step, they remain elusive, but Paul and Sheryl see a variety of other whales. Dolphins are really small-toothed whales, and they see them by the hundreds. Since they haven't had any luck finding sperm whales, Paul and Sheryl go to the island of Pico to talk to the experts, former whalers now retired.
I was 15 years old the first time I went out whaling as a rower, and they were missing a man. Then one day when I was 18, I got to go out as a harpooner, and I caught my first whale. The whole village was involved, and we were happy when the rocket was set off to signal that a whale had been sighted from the house down there. More than once, the boat was tipped over by the whale, and everyone was thrown in the sea with the whale. Yes, everyone was in the water. Everyone worked on small fishing, or farmed and worked on the land, and we earned our money on that. But in the summer, when the rocket went off, we went out to catch the whale. This was extra money that we could save. Now I have a television in my house, and sometimes when I watch television, I see a whale on TV and I cry. And also, when I hear a rocket, my heart beats faster, and I remember.
From the 1800s until the 1980s, Azorians put to sea in these canoes to hunt the mighty sperm whales. A crew of former whalers and islanders interested in this heritage take Paul and Sheryl out in a restored canoe to get an idea of how perilous this was.
Because sometimes you have to leave out the valves, only the boat can move. You have to have control, you know.
Not only are the boats tippy and over-canvassed, they are less than 1/100th the weight of the animals they hunted. These are no factory ships.
No. Cadê? Ai!
Paddling away from the dock, the mast and sails are raised, and the boat sails out to where a whale has been spotted by someone ashore.
Você está no brandagem, não é o que estás fazendo?
Não, eu nunca peguei verdade.
Nunca peguei, mas eu me pego.
Ele já tem 2 dias mais que voar.
Para frente, ok.
Devagar.
Mais jogador. Mais. Apto. More. Força!
As we found out, just sailing these light, fast boats was challenging enough without having to worry about harpooning a 60-foot whale that could snap our craft to matchsticks.
Watch. It's okay. Wait.
Starting in the 1950s, these launches were used to pull the canoes out to the whales. But then the canoes were released, and the whalers still rowed after their quarry with hand-thrown harpoons. Now that whaling is over, dairy farming is the mainstay of the island's economy. The system works on a cooperative basis, with numerous independent farmers contributing to the milk supply. Many farmers have only 1 or 2 cows, and like this man, make a twice daily run up to the hills to milk them.
I think I hear a cow behind that hedge.
Sheryl and I have learned to speak Portuguese and ask the farmer if we can help with the milking of his cow, a first-time experience for us. The walls surrounding the fields are made of loosely stacked volcanic rocks, and it's more convenient to just tear down a piece of the wall near the cow and rebuild later than to construct a permanent gate. It seems to me that when you're milking a cow, you have to get pretty personal.
Oh, you're brave.
I think I'm in trouble.
Nada.
This is definitely harder than it looks. I'm a long way from filling this milk can. Maybe Sheryl will have more luck.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try. Ooh. This is dangerous work. Oh. Oh, okay. Oh, that looks hopeful. Hey, she did it.
From Pico, Paul and Sheryl sail back across the channel to Horta for the procession of Our Lady of Guidance, the saint of fishermen and whalers and all those who travel the sea.
The chapel on Montguia is open only on this one day each year, and after our transatlantic passage, it means a lot to us to participate in this ceremony, since the saint is one that watches over sailors. After the Mass, the procession begins, with faithful pilgrims following down the hill to town, some walking barefoot in fulfillment of promises made. Below us, waiting in the bay, is a flotilla of local boats. Since Our Lady of Guidance watches over those traveling the sea, she will be carried across the beach to the shore and transported to a fishing boat, as sunbathers watch in amazement. The fishing boat leads a nautical procession around the point, carrying Our Lady into the marina at Horta, where she is taken ashore for further ceremonies in town.
The procession is the official start of Sea Week festivities, an annual waterfront event and the highlight of the summer in Horta.
What a nice gesture. We've got a bottle of the local wine, Terra Stelava, and a hydrangea.
Our favorite event is the regatta of traditional whaling canoes sailed by crews from all the islands. People here are tied to the sea, and spectators of all ages crowd the pier as the fleet glides out into the channel. Sea Week is 8 days of fun for locals and visiting sailors, and culminates with a spectacular show of fireworks. As summer draws to a close, there's one thing left to do before we leave Horta, and that's to add a painting to the breakwall.
this is a nice one. It's got the stars and the boat and the waves. And then right beside it is another one with the star theme.
It's a tradition in Horta that all visiting sailors leave their mark on the wall, and the paintings record the many voyages made to this historic harbor over the years.
Before making their final departure from Horta, Paul and Sheryl add their contribution to the seawall.
Now we can safely go to sea. It's bad luck to leave Horta without leaving your painting on the wall. We've updated it with the new year. We can safely head off now.
The winds are light the day Paul and Sheryl set sail. Ahead lies the open sea, and as Sheryl scans the horizon, she notices a strange motion in the waves.
Could it be a whale? It is. We slow the boat to get a look at this magnificent giant, a 50-foot sperm whale substantially longer than our boat. He doesn't seem afraid or aggressive, so Paul quietly slips over the side to get a look at him underwater.
As soon as I get in the ocean, I hear the clicking sound of several whales, and although I can't see them, I know they are scanning me with their sonar. Straining my eyes, I see a pair of shadows ahead, and I realize it's a mother whale and her calf. They look me over slowly from a distance and are gone again, and just as I'm about to get out of the water, I feel a powerful vibration in my chest. It's the large whale we saw on the surface sounding me with his echolocator, and I'm in awe as this 50-ton whale sizes me up. His eyes are as big as grapefruit, and as we stare at each other through the water, he slowly rolls away, his curiosity satisfied. We feel lucky to get such a close look at these magnificent animals, a perfect ending to our visit to the islands of the whales.
In 370 BC, the Greek philosopher Plato wrote of Atlantis, a lost continent in the mid-Atlantic, where thousands of years ago an advanced civilization was sunk into the sea. Curious about the legends, after finding mysterious ruins in the Bahamas, Paul and Sheryl Shard sailed to the Portuguese islands of the Azores and searched for traces of this lost civilization.
We first became interested in the legends of Atlantis in the Bahamas when we heard rumors that the remains of an ancient temple had been discovered on a shallow bank near our anchorage. There were claims it was Atlantis re-emerging, so to satisfy our curiosity, we went to take a look for ourselves.
Out on the bank, we swam through what appeared to be huge square blocks of stone covered in growth. From a boat, they certainly did look like the remains of an old temple or castle. But when we got in the water, we realized they were in fact stromatolites, an ancient form of single-celled marine life that grows layer upon layer in block-like formations.
The experience did get us interested in learning more about Atlantis, however, and later we decided to explore another area where traces of this lost continent are said to be found, the Portuguese islands of the Azores.
The Azores lie on the mid-Atlantic ridge, an area of subaquatic volcanic activity, where, through the millenniums, islands rise and fall by the forces of earth and sea. An eruption here in Fayal in 1958 spewed enough lava and ash to add more than 2 square miles of rocky coast to this island in the Azores. This was once open sea, but is now land 100 meters above the blue depths of the Atlantic.
But it's fragile ground, and in the time since the eruption, the sea has reclaimed much of the new land. The old lighthouse now stands buried in ash a kilometer inland from the new coastline. In one account of the destruction of Atlantis, a volcano erupts, causing earthquakes and floods which submerge the island, similar to the volcanic activity here.
Next, we sail to the nearby island of Saint-Georges, where there is a remote village built on an old lava flow. The rounded volcanic peaks of Saint-Georges line the horizon as we sail up to the island. The people here seem to live in harmony with the beauty that surrounds them, just like the people of Atlantis, who are known for their peaceful ways.
That's 100 feet, Paul.
The next day, with 2 steps safely anchored in the harbor, the Shards begin their hike through fields of blue hydrangeas to the village of Santa Cristo, built on what the islanders called a faja. Fajas are flat areas of land at sea level, formed by rock slides and old lava flows. There is no road to this remote village. The only way to get there is by foot.
On our walk down, we meet the relatives of one of the 12 families that live in the faja. Since there isn't a road, they have loaded supplies onto a donkey. All along the path are magnificent ginger lilies, and our new friends teach us how to sip the sweet nectar, a refreshing tonic for the hot walk down to the faja.
When the Shards reach the faja, they meet 2 sisters who have spent their lives in this village and ask them what it's like to live here.
They like to be here because it's a quiet place. When they want to catch some fish, they just go to the lagoon and stay a while there and fish and get some fishes. Things, yeah.
They need right here, the gardens, the fish.
Yeah, and the worst thing, it's winter because it's a windy place here. So they're not afraid of accidents. Accidents with cars. There's no cars, of course. There's no accidents.
Hiking back to our boat through this peaceful land, it's easy to believe that the utopian world of Atlantis could have existed here. We have to leave before dawn for the sail to the island of Terceira. We've heard that bulls are held in reverence there, and wonder if this could be another connection to the lost continent. We cruise along beside the rugged coast of Saint-Georges, and when we pass the point, it's going to be open ocean again for 40 miles of downwind sailing. After being on land for a while, it feels great to be back on the water.
When we reach the point, we're surrounded by dolphins. These magical creatures figure prominently in many myths, and it feels as if they're guiding us to our destination.
The Shards anchor two-step in the bay and join in the week-long Feast of the Holy Spirit.
Festivities involve large amounts of food in the hydrangea-covered island of Terceira.
This is all for Karen.
Besides a great picnic, the journey has another purpose. We're choosing the 4 best bulls to be guests of honor for the ceremonies in town, and not to become hamburgers. The bulls will be run in the streets of the village, a ritual apparently practiced by the Atlanteans, who captured bulls for religious celebrations also, and allowed them to run free in the grounds of the temple.
And as honored guests, the bulls are transported to town on trucks, followed by a procession of vehicles garlanded in flowers.
Let's go.
When we arrive in town, the bulls are tied with a 200-foot rope to be sure they can be guided back into their box at the end of the allotted 15 minutes. Then they are released to run in the streets, giving the men an opportunity to demonstrate their courage to the women by facing the bulls. Now, so many other men are in the street here, I just have to give this a try. It's a macho pride kind of thing, so I grab the camera and join in the fun. I'm a little nervous about the size of the bull, but looking through the viewfinder, he looks a lot smaller and I get my courage up.
Hold it. Trust me, okay? All right, now. Wait.
Paul, be careful.
Is it safe in here?
Yeah. That's way.
Safe?
Let's try it. It's safe from there.
I don't believe that this is happening.
The day after running with bulls in the streets, Paul and Sheryl continue their exploration of the island's volcanic activity by participating in another island ritual, the preparation of a feast buried and cooked in a volcano.
And what is the name of this dish in Portuguese?
Cozido português.
Cozido Portuguese. So it's like Portuguese stew?
Yeah.
And what things are we putting in? There's so much food here.
We have cabbage, carrots, we have potatoes, we have chicken, meat, and some sausage.
Wow. So all of this is going to fit into this pot. Paul and I watch in amazement as 10 pounds of beef, Whole chickens, dozens of potatoes, and at least 30 sausages are loaded into the pot. Add a little salt and there's enough to feed an army. Since the pot will be buried in steaming hot clay, it has to be well sealed.
Why are we putting the towels on, John?
Because the smell doesn't get in. The smell of inshof.
The sulfur?
Uh-huh.
The sulfur.
Yeah, exactly.
The pot is so heavy it needs to be lowered over the balcony to the rest of the family waiting below, who load it into a van for the ride to the volcano.
With our convoy of friends, we drive up into the hills to the volcanic area of the island, where fumaroles of hot sulfur gas vent out from deep in the Earth's core. Walking in from the road, we reach the furnace, an area of hot clay which will serve as our oven. It's a mystical place, and we feel as if we could be in an ancient world presenting offerings to the gods. The pot will be buried in the hot clay to simmer all day for the feast this evening. Whoa! Oh, it's hot! It's very hot to touch. Wow. Into the oven it goes.
Okay.
It's more than less 8 hours to do it.
Okay, this is not fast food.
Yeah.
No, it's slow food.
During the 8 hours it will take for the food to cook, the Shards and their friends head for the ocean. But a day at the beach is a little different in the Azores. The volcanic terrain does not lend itself to sandy shorelines, so residents swim in saltwater pools formed by the volcanoes. The sharp black rock absorbs the heat of the sun, warming the cool Atlantic water, and man-made patios serve as beaches for sunbathers.
At nightfall, we go back up into the hills to dig up our dinner, which has been slow cooking in the hot volcanic clay for the day.
What a lovely dinner.
I hope that we all like this after all this.
Peraí, deixa eu marcar também eu. Peraí.
Hey! Does it feel hot?
Yeah. Pronto, então a gente vai para ali para tapar o buraco.
You're just going to carry it back like this?
Yeah.
So we'll unwrap it when we get home. It'll stay hot, I guess.
Temos que tapar o buraco, Sheryl. Sim, vamos tapar o buraco aqui.
Olha a corda, vais...
Aqui por cima.
Tonight it's pure magic here. Walking by lantern light across this ancient volcano, we feel closer than ever to the secrets of Atlantis.
Wow.
So,
All right.
Following their volcanic feast, the Shards set sail for Praia de Victoria on the eastern side of Terceira, where there is a well-protected harbor and marina. The Shards attend a local bullfight, intrigued by the unique form that the art takes here, and the possible tie-in to a similar ritual practiced by the Atlanteans and also the Minoans of Crete, thought to be a colony of Atlantis.
The first into the ring is the Cavaleiro, who shows his courage and riding skills by placing ribboned darts in the bull's shoulders, which put him in a fighting mood for the events to follow. Next into the arena is the Torero, who shows his skill with the cape. Unlike modern Spanish bullfighting, the bulls are not killed in the Azores. And then, the most incredible part of the evening, the catching of the bull. In the Azores, the term bullfighter has a different definition. Bullfighters, or fucados, are unpaid members of a local bullfighters club, and it's their job to catch the bull before it goes back to the fields. No swords or shields for protection, just a man standing in front of 1,000 pounds of muscle and horns, and it doesn't always work out.
Paul and I can't believe what we're seeing and just have to talk to these people. Have you ever been hurt?
Yes, a lot of times.
What happened? Can you tell us?
Oh, it's so much things. I broke my ear, okay, in the body and the legs, little things only.
Apparently, the bullfighters don't know who will be at the front of the line until the moment they enter the ring. This is an honor, and they dedicate their catch to someone special, then get 3 chances to stop the bull.
The bull catching we're seeing here shows an uncanny resemblance to the bull wrestling and jumping depicted in the ancient art of the Minoan people, who some experts believe were descendants of Atlantis.
It's beautiful. It's the truth of the bullfighting. We see the bull in the eyes and he sees us in the eyes. Only, we don't have anything to protect us.
Still on the quest for remnants of the ancient civilization, the Shards are told of an underwater mountain located 35 miles offshore. This volcanic seamount has been recently active. Could it be the site of Atlantis?
Our chart shows the area as just 20 feet deep, easily within reach of a dive without scuba gear.
As soon as we get in the water, we realize this is a special place. There are large schools of various fish and unusually warm currents. Then, an enormous manta ray 14 feet wide cruises by.
But the top of this underwater mountain is not 20 feet deep. It has sunk to more like 60. Almost at my limits of free diving, I finally make it to the bottom where I see a curtain of bubbles streaming out from between the rocks. Then I'm out of air and head back to two-step anchored above. We'll have to return to Terceira, a 7-hour sail, to collect scuba gear, then make the dive again.
But bad weather is brewing farther out at sea, and the islands are now in the path of Hurricane Erika. The next day, the port captain orders all boats to be hauled out of the harbor to avoid disasters like the grounding of this freighter.
With help from our friends, we tie lines down to the pier to keep our boat from blowing over in the hurricane force winds.
Very good.
When the storm has passed, the Shards link up with oceanographers from the University of the Azores and return to the seamount to pursue their explorations.
And what a sight meets our eyes when we descend to the bottom. Like the volcanic vents where we cooked food in steaming earth, hot gases bubble out of underwater fumaroles on this volcano, warming the water and supporting diverse forms of marine life.
It's a magical place, and remarkable that it's sinking further into the sea. With the volcanic forces at work in this area of the mid-Atlantic, it seems a likely location for a continent to disappear into the sea.
Whether or not Atlantis ever existed is hard to say, but in exploring the possibilities, Sheryl and I have discovered the enchanted mid-Atlantic islands of the Azores and been captured by their magic.